In part 4 of the 2013 Kane Opponent Series, we're going to talk about a team that has made a big splash in recruiting this all season, and that's the South Florida Bulls, whom we play in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium on September 28th for our first road game of the season. Here's what you need to know about the Bulls. Like with the previous opponent, they have a new head coach, but unlike Ernest Wilson III, who is Savannah State's new head coach, Willie Taggart comes in with big expectations in the Bay Area. Taggart became the third head coach in their history. He comes over from Western Kentucky, which is his alma mater, to come back home to build the Bulls into a national power. He didn't keep any of Skip Holtz's assistants. When Taggart came in, he cleaned house from top to bottom. He brought in many of his staff from Western Kentucky down to Tampa with him. Here's a list of coaches he brought with him down to Tampa. You have offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Walt Wells. You have special teams coordinator Stu Holt, defensive line coach Eric Matthews, quarterback coach Nick Sheridan, linebacker coach Raymond Woody. Now those names won't jump out at you right away, but the one thing Taggart values is loyalty, and with the Woody hire, who knows every coach in South Florida, Taggart wants to be a bigger presence in the Tri-County area. And in the 13 class, since he took over, he already has 4 commits from the Tri-County area. That's 3 in Miami-Dade and 1 in Broward. When you add to the fact he hired former NFL assistant Chuck Bresnahan as his defensive coordinator, and basically had a coup when he took Ron Cooper away from LSU. And Ron Cooper is very familiar with the Bay Area, having been a former Bucs assistant, as the secondaries coach, and you have a staff that's committed to taking that next step to making the USF Bulls into a national power and a force to be reckoned with. Now, the Bulls have never had a 10-win season in their history. However, you give Willie Taggart 2 to 3 years, and they'll be winning 10 games on a consistent basis. But before we get to the future, I want to get to the past. Last year they were 3-9 and just 1-6 in the former Big East, now the American Athletic Conference. So let's break down the 2013 USF Bulls. Offensively, there will be a change in philosophy in Temple Terrace. What you won't see is the quarterback getting the majority of the rushes as he did under Skip Holt and before that Jim Leavitt. But we will see some running from the quarterback still, but you're going to see more of a power running game. And on the surface, you'd think senior Marcus Shaw would have a big lead in the competition due to the fact that no one else has done anything of note in the offense. However, the thing you have to consider about Shaw is that he's not the back that can go 25 to 30 carries a game, and in Taggart's offense, that's what it demands. It opens the door for guys like sophomore Willie Davis and junior Michael Pierre, as well as newcomers Darius Tyson, Stephon McCray, to come in and maybe be that kind of back. Now, Taggart will give Shaw every opportunity to be that go-to back. However, the main competition really will be for the reserve spots, second, third, fourth, etc. The quarterback position will be up for grabs. It's fierce right now, and as was the case back in the spring when senior Bobby Eveld and sophomore Matt Floyd were battling for the job. No one stood out there, and then come fall practice, which is almost starting now, if it hasn't already, this will be an area to one to watch to see who wins the job in Tampa. Now, no one seems to be in it for the long haul. Floyd's a nice dual threat quarterback. However, with him more of a running quarterback than a passing one, you have to ask yourself, would he give them the balance Taggart wants from his quarterbacks? Which is some mobility, but don't sacrifice the passing game too much. On the other hand, Bobby Eveld has much more experience at that position, but he did not produce at a high level the last 2 years when he was B.J. Daniels' backup. Now, after the spring, it seems his pro-style tendencies will have him be the guy to run the offense Taggart and Wells wants. Now, Floyd could be the change of pace option in certain packages, but it's likely when it's all said and done, Bobby Eveld will win the job. But there's a wild card you want to consider here, and that's Stephen Bench, who transferred from Penn State back in late May. If Eveld struggles early, keep an eye on Bench because of what he brings to the table, which is his own skill set, and it's huge to boot, and the experience he learned under Bill O'Brien in Happy Valley for that year. But it'll be ultimately his job to lose. But right now it'll be Bobby Eveld But ultimately, if Stephen Bench comes in, I don't think you see anyone else the rest of the year. But the name you want to watch down the road is incoming freshman Mike White, who was Taggart's hand-picked quarterback in his first class. Now, having that endorsement is huge, but realistically, you got to look at maybe a full year to properly know the offense and put on some weight before he goes up the depth chart. Now we get over to the receivers. Now, again, this was nothing to write home about here. They did lose Victor Mark to graduation and Terrence Mitchell to violation of team rules. The latter wasn't a big deal for the offense, as he was going to be moved to the other side anyway. The receivers that do come back this year are led by junior Andre Davis, who might become the first receiver to crack the 750-yard mark, and that would be saying something. Now, starting alongside Davis is junior Deontay Welch, who had 18 receptions for 103 yards in 2012. Oh, by the way, Davis had 46 receptions for 534 last year. After that, you have Derek Hopkins, who only had 278 yards on 19 receptions, and sophomore Davario Montgomery. But the one that gives him the huge shot in the arm could be Chris Dunkley, the former Florida transfer. Now, he should be reinstated into the program by the start of the season. They have a pretty good tight end in sophomore Sean Price, who had 21 receptions for 209 yards in 2012. And in Taggart's offense, it wouldn't be a shock if he were near the top of the team in receptions. Now let's talk about the offensive line. Again, not much in terms of surprises here or even any competition here. There aren't really any surprises up front, even much of a competition. At offensive guard, they have sophomores Brindar Gunbinson and Thor Joswiak. There's a fun fact about Joswiak here. His real name is Thornton, but as Vanderbilt coach Herb Hand, a friend of the Joswiak family, told USA Today's Paul Meyerberg, I found this pretty interesting too when I read it. If he wants to play a piano, it's Thornton. Football is Thor. Now, from a football end, he moves over from right guard to left guard, which opens up a starting role for Gudmundson. Junior Austin Reeder is back at the center position, and junior Quintarius Eatman is back at right tackle. Now, there are two new starters on that line. One is Gudmundson, and the other is junior left tackle Darrell Williams. Now, Williams has some big shoes to fill, considering that all-conference pick Mark Popick has gone to graduation. Their staff believes that Williams, who started several games on that side in 2012, is ready to assume a full-time starting role. That line was terrible last year, but when you have to factor in there were losses and attrition that played a major role. If they stay healthy, this could be a unit that will be one to deal with. Now, let's move over defensively. Defensively, their front four is going to be the best in the conference, if not one of the better ones in the country by season's end. Look what they have coming back at the ends. You have senior Ryan Giddens and sophomore Aaron Lynch. But the one they're really talking about is Lynch, who's going to be an All-American. Now, people forget, when he was at Notre Dame in his freshman year before he transferred, and had to sit out last year, he was already becoming a force on the D-line. This guy has tremendous talent, and with the right coaching, this guy could be a great Bulls fans talk years after he leaves the program about. With Lynch on one side and Giddens on the other side, harassing linemen and quarterbacks, anything's possible. Now, their entire front is pretty darn good. See, after Giddens and Lynch, you have in the rotation seniors Julius Forte and Tevin Mims. And they are going to get a lot of work in the rotation for them. But they did lose Corey Grissom to graduation, as he was signed as an undrafted free agent by the New England Patriots. On the inside, they get seniors Luke Sager and Anthony Hill back, as well as juniors Elkino Watson and Todd Chandler, as well as sophomore James Hamilton. The staff and the fan base in the Tampa Bay area are really waiting to see if Chandler becomes the beast people thought he would be when he came out of Northwestern High in Miami. They are deep here, so they can absorb the loss of Grissom. But make no mistake, Lynch is the main guy on that D-line. Now, while the D-line is very strong, the same cannot be said for the back seven. In 2012, they lacked production and reliability, and the results proved that pretty painfully, I might add. Their staff believes that Cooper has to find some immediate impact players in their secondary, which, like many groups on this team, doesn't lack talent, but they lack consistency. Let's start with the linebacking core. They get senior D.D. Lattimore back there, but the other two outside linebackers have to step up and produce and take the pressure off Lattimore. One of those players that needs to step up is returning starter Richard Cleat, a junior who comes back on the strong side. The others that have to step up their games are sophomore Zach Bullock and Tayshawn Whitehurst. To try to duplicate what Sam Barrington did on the weak side is going to be pretty tough. I mean, Barrington's gone to graduation, was drafted 7th round by the Green Bay Packers. If there's a weak link on the D, this area is it right here. Now, Ron Cooper is the man to lead the secondary back. How bad was it in Tampa, you ask, last year? Could stomach this stat. They only had 2 picks all year. Let me say it again. USF had 2 interceptions all last year. Now Cooper is going to have a lot of work to do, not having Kayvon Webster to work with. Kayvon Webster graduated and he was drafted third round by the Denver Broncos. And he was their leading tackler last year too. But there is some good news here. They went younger in the secondary and as the season went on, whether due to injuries or otherwise, and this experience is going to help them with Cooper coaching that secondary. Now even better for them, Cooper has 3 seniors to work with. Mark Joyce and Jacquez Jenkins at safety and Brandon Salinas at cornerback. And joining Salinas on the other side is sophomore Kenneth Durden, who moved into the starting lineup late in the year. And this is going to be an area to watch as the season goes on. Special teams, they have 3 guys that can return kicks and punts to the house. Shaw, Hopkins, and Andre Davis, though it's likely it'll be more of the latter 2 than Shaw due to the fact that he will be in their offense more and not with enough energy to return kicks or punts. The attention here is going to be turning to breaking in both a new kicker and a new punter. At the former, you have Macon Bonani, who graduated and was signed by the Tennessee Titans as an undrafted free agent. So it'll be up to junior Marvin Kloss or incoming freshman Emilio Nadelman to fill those big shoes Bonani leaves behind. At punter, you have sophomore Matthias Sibati, who steps up to replace Justin Brockhouse-Kahn, who's gone to graduation. Now, in closing, I looked at USF's schedule. You have to believe this is an 8 to 9 win team, possibly 10 if things go right. We're going to get a good idea on them on September 7th when they go up to East Lansing to play Michigan State. Now, as I said in the beginning, we come to Raymond James Stadium on September 28th after USF has their bye week. Their biggest conference game is going to be Louisville on October 26th, when the Cardinals come to Raymond James Stadium. If they win that game, then running the table in the conference becomes a real possibility. However, when you look at it realistically, I think 8-4 is more accurate for USF in 2013. In Part 5 of the series, I will talk about our opponent in the ACC opener, and that's the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets.